If you've been following this series, you are aware that the previous video had a mesh that didn't look quite like this. And that was because I'd been looking for the excuse to talk about the 3D print toolbox. That done, I've gone back and fixed this. And if you're curious what I did, I redid the muzzle and reattached it. And then I remeshed using a Voxel Remesh, and I was much more precise in how I did so. Now that said, I want to take a minute to talk about sculpting. If we go up to the top, rather than simply using object or edit mode, there's also a few other things, including sculpt mode. And in sculpt mode, there's a number of tools. There's these blue tools, which are more about direct manipulation of the clay, adding or removing clay. There are these red tools, which are more about scraping or trimming the clay, that type of thing. Yellow tools, which tend to be more grabbing the clay and pinching it and doing things like that with it. And if we scroll down a little bit, there's a series of other tools, which I probably won't do much with. Other things to be aware of is there's the radius setting, the strength setting, and those are going to be significant. If I pick this blob tool and I decide that I want to add a little bit here, for example, we can see that it's really going crazy. By taking the radius down, that outer circle gets significantly smaller, and we have less of an impact, and the impact is more contained. And likewise, the strength setting makes that inner circle larger or smaller in relation to the radius. And we can see that we can do some really aggressive modeling then. So let's just take a moment and make a few adjustments using that. Okay. There's also an inflate tool, which confines itself more to the existing geometry. There's also like crease and sharpen tools, and we can grab those and sort of sculpt things in a little bit. Maybe now, if I go overkill on something, there's also the plus and minus options, so I can actually reverse the effect somewhat of what I've just done if I was too aggressive in an action. There's a sharpen and crease tool that comes in rather handy sometimes if I'm just trying to. There are some smoothing tools that will average things out so that if you've got a lot of variations, it'll just try to find that average height and smooth things back out to where they ought to be. There's a trim tool that you can use to just sort of scrape things down. Ooh, that booty is still looking pretty big. Maybe I better take that down a little bit. Oops. Maybe I'll use the multi-plane scrape on that. That will work on multiple planes to take things down. Or I might try a flattening tool to just flatten things back up a little bit. Put a crease back in there, shall we? Oh, I seem to be adding to it, so let's subtract. Let's scrape them down a little bit here with the multi-plane tool. Let's use the inflate tool to maybe try to inflate the thighs a little bit. Maybe do the same for the calves, and you get the general idea. I can also do some general feature work, like if I decide I want to put in take the strength up, take the radius down, and I can try using the blob tool and just carve out maybe some depressions for the eyes. If that's a little bit too extreme, I can reverse that and maybe just soften that a bit. Maybe I'll go ahead and add a ridge. So you get the general idea. Back in edit mode, maybe I generate a mirror modifier, leave it on X. If I want the top of this eyebrow to be a little sharper, I can grab on Y, slide it back out a bit, and so forth. If I'm using sculpt mode, very often I will go back and forth between sculpt mode and edit mode and make small changes one way or the other. So, that's enough there for the moments. There's obviously a lot more that can be done, but that's the general gist of things. So sculpt away, and we will revisit things later, dealing with a few other new issues.